Hey everyone, welcome to the final Wednesday edition of the rankings and previews for every NFL game. Well, there's only one game left. Eagles and Chiefs rematch from 2 years ago. Three-peat on the line. We have some Chiefs fans that are always in the chat, some Taylor Swift implications. We're going to probably talk about all that stuff and what will be likely one of the more toxic Super Bowls that we've had some time, but certainly two really good teams playing against one another. Jim Coventry and I, again, final time for the NFL season, at least this year, talking about the game previews and matchups. So I'll kick it off right away, Jim, because I think the interest is going to be what will Saquon Barkley do for this Eagles offense? If we're going to talk Chiefs and Eagles, what's the most dominant factor of both teams? The Eagles has to be Saquon Barkley, which is crazy because A.J. Brown's really good. Devonta Smith is really good. Dallas Goedert has been a fantasy machine over the course of the playoffs, much like Kelsey was last year for the Chiefs, but it's going to be centralized on Saquon Barkley. There's a number of different prop bets, for example, that's out there, but I think the most interesting one, and we discussed yesterday on day 2 of the Super Bowl marathon with Jim Coventry on the RotoWire Fantasy Football channel. If you want to go back and watch that, I did make a guest appearance for about 10 minutes, but there's a billion other guests that were out there that were equally, if not better than me. I had talked about Saquon Barkley's longest run bet was situated around 25.5. Every other runner, whether it be Mahomes, Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, Kenny Gainwell, was 13.5 or under. So Vegas, and they're right to assume this, Vegas has the money on Barkley ripping off a 26-yard run or more to get interest, because that's what we're just expecting. Barkley to be amazing and continue to be amazing. Can the Chiefs slow Barkley down?
You know, Joe, it's a great question because a lot of analysts are citing numbers. They're throwing out that number that the Chiefs have given up 140 yards to running back per game over the last month or so. And I'm not buying that. The Chiefs, when they want to stop the run, they can. Joe Mixon in the first round, did they really care if Joe Mixon ran for 85 yards? Did it really put any sweat off of their back? They knew they were winning that game. So what? Mixon, run. It ain't Nico Collins beating us for 50, right?
Mm-hmm.
James Cook. Even you go back to last year's playoff game, last 2023, great first half. They're like, you know what? Oh, they want our Cook. We'll stop him. They shut him down. This year, he gets his 85 yards. Fine. Didn't matter. Doesn't make a difference. So ultimately, I think they know that the game plan is always get Barkley going. But if you think back on the year, Joe, Barkley hasn't always been a sustaining runner. This team punted a lot. This team broke down the red zone a lot. We remember all the flash plays, Barkley with the 50-yard, 70-yard, 60-yard runs over and over and over. But it wasn't like that was his whole game. And there's a lot of boom bust to his game. And Barkley's a star runner. I'm not throwing any shade at him. He was my favorite player to watch this year. But if the Chiefs have to stop him, they can. And one of the ways I think they might, and I know we'll get to the passing game later, so I'll just kind of hold on that. But what I'll add in right now, I think Steve Spagnuolo is going to run a few extra blitzes. They're going to be dual purpose blitzes. Those blitzes are going to be, if Hurts throws, they flush him to the outside. But if they run, they get gaps loaded up. And they put a little extra stress in the running game. Barkley will be fine. Barkley will have a good game. But I think that Barkley is not going to be the player that drags the team on his back. Because if it gets to that, the Chiefs will say, oh, no. That will stop here.
It's really interesting because I alluded to it at the top of the show. This is a rematch from the Super Bowl. It took place 2 years ago. The Chiefs, of course, won that one. Not unlike what we've seen throughout the playoffs this year. It was a poor pass interference call at the very end of that Chiefs-Eagles game a couple of years ago. Chiefs ended up getting the victory. But that was one of the more explosive Super Bowls we've ever seen, right? 38-35. It felt like whoever had the ball last was going to win. And in this case, it was the Chiefs that did so. The element that is different in this, and there's a number of them. I guess the most consequential is Jalen Hurts, who was the leading rusher in that Super Bowl 2 years ago, 70 yards rushing. The next highest rusher for the Eagles was Kenny Gainwell, 7 for 21. That was when they had Miles Sanders on the Eagles. Miles Sanders, got paid by the Panthers shortly
after. Hurt early in that game.
7 for 16, though, right? Like Saquon Barkley is a different element, and I'm sure the Chiefs are like, well, yeah, I mean, we know what the Eagles want to do. The question would be, can they actually stop that? But they were able to stop the Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwells of the world and let the read option go. And if you were to commit and you were to take away Saquon Barkley, does that then open the floor for Jalen Hurts once again to run roughshod on the Chiefs defense? Because you can't take away everything. It's not possible when we're talking about 2 Super Bowl teams, theoretically. So does this set the stage for Jalen Hurts actually to be one of the leading rushers of the Super Bowl Sunday?
The most important difference in the game 2 years ago to this game is the use of the ineligible man downfield penalty. That penalty was not called in 2022. It was a cheat code all year for the Eagles. Eagles had a great offensive line then too. And when they went RPO, they had 2 or 3 linemen downfield, which it meant you had an extra blocker way out ahead, or if you wanted to pass, they could function and pick off second level pass defenders. You can't do that anymore. Jalen Hurts, if you've noticed the last few years, what happened to Jalen Hurts? Why did his pass numbers fall? Because his cheat code got taken away. It was the best cheat code, and it was within the rules. So they didn't do anything wrong, did nothing wrong. The rules are not going to be called. You play that way. So you talk about Jalen Hurts here. He has 2 primary weaknesses as a quarterback. One, struggles against zone defense. Second thing, if he has to throw when he's outside the pocket, not a good quarterback. He needs to be in the pocket. So Steve Spagnuolo knows this. Steve Spagnuolo is a genius. So what do you do? First of all, the Chiefs play about 31% man coverage, which is a high rate. The Lions played like 43. Most teams were in the 20s, 23, 24. The Chiefs are more man heavy, 31 again percent. That meant 70% of the time, though, they were playing zone. They're bumping that up there. There's no way they're going to play zone against A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and let Jalen Hurts have his best scenario. So first, I'll put some zone looks behind him. Second thing, like I said earlier, I talked about those blitzes. The blitzes will be specifically designed to get Hurts out of the pocket. And that is going to be something to try to make him at his weakest. Now, like used to your point, there will be some running lanes. Yes, if you flush him out and he can't pass, yes, Jalen Hurts will take off. The knee looked fine in the last game, and he's had 2 more weeks off, so he should be okay there. Jalen Hurts should get some rushing yardage here. I think the whole point is Spagnuolo won't blitz in every now, so you got to keep your defenders fresh. You're going to need him for the fourth quarter, so he'll selectively do it. But I think this is going to lead to a number of broken down drives. I think there's going to be big plays, but this version of the Eagles, like I said earlier, this isn't one that always sustains drive. Remember all those games in the first quarter they didn't score till like late in the season? That's a thing. Not lately, but that's indicative of their offense, that they're not like score, score, score.
Well, and here's the other part of this is if you are against teams that are lesser, and we can say during this playoff run for the Eagles, every one of the opponents they faced, maybe the Rams one is not the argument, but certainly the Packers, certainly the Commanders, you're able to influence your will on the game. You're able to dictate what you want to do, right? If it's Saquon Barkley, if it's the Jalen Hurts stuff, if you're looking for shot plays for A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Devonta Smith, when a defense is trying to react to you, you can then react to them, right? And this is not rocket science. This is A through Z sort of level NFL analysis. But I think that's where the crux of the issue becomes, because if it's we're playing chess and the Eagles know the Chiefs will take Saquon Barkley away, and therefore we're going to have Jalen Hurts do X, Y, and Z thing. I think they're getting away from what they are capable of doing, but also protecting not just Jalen Hurts, but the whole cacophony of the offense itself. So if we're having Saquon Barkley at least mitigate to some degree, like I want to say his rushing total right now is 125 yards. It's set around that range. That was one of the highest it was 2 weeks ago for the Commanders. Didn't quite hit that mark. That's a massive mark. 118 yards for any of them is a really good game, right? So if we're saying Saquon Barkley will still have an influence, but not like game-breaking level, then it has to be Jalen Hurts doing some things. Who is the one that he'll be looking to the most? Is it Dallas Goedert, who at least in our station is the guy that's been targeted a lot as the popular bet, and elsewhere, I saw his receiving prop bump over 5 yards the past 3 days, and I think it's going to climb more if there's any indication what everyone else seems to think. Or could it be A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith from that Eagles offense that is the beneficiary of Hurts passing?
So you mentioned earlier from the marathon that we had on RotoWire, the main channel. If you're watching this on RotoWire Fantasy Football YouTube, it's on their main channel. Well, we saw a lot of people were talking Dallas Goedert props, and rightfully so. Because first of all, we're going to see the Chiefs have not been good against tight ends. That has not been a priority of theirs. The tight ends have done extremely well against them. But if I get the amount of zone looks I think we're going to see, that's going to be easier throws to Goddard. The zone looks that are going to add extra bodies are going to try to bracket in Brown. Now, Devontae Smith runs the slot a lot, so he might have a little extra opportunity there as well. But I think the person who'll see the least coverage will be Dallas Goedert. I do think they're willing to get. So when we circle back to two things, they don't think Dallas Goedert's going to beat them. I don't think they have to like say, all right, we got to make a point, take him away. Back to the Barkley thing, and I intimated this earlier, but you got me thinking. I got to circle back. I think the Chiefs are okay. You don't want this to happen. I think they're okay, Barkley gets a long touchdown run. Maybe he gets 2. But if we could make them punt on 3 other drives, we're good with that. Because if they're ultimately going to score, do we really care if it's a 3-play drive or it's a 9-play drive?
I love that.
At the end of the day, not a big deal. So I think the way they'll play, they might sell out a little bit, knowing there might not be able to make the second level. But I think that's a trade-off they're willing to make. So the yardage for Barkley's tough because 2 runs, he could hit that number, and that could be it for the day, right? He can go over without a problem. But I think it's back to the whole thing I said. I just think they want to stop him enough and put him in obvious passing situations where they can dial up the blitz with the zone and then let Jalen Hurts beat himself. And
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but to me, what you're saying is if the Chiefs limit the explosive plays, the Eagles are a very explosive offense, whether it be Saquon Barkley or a really good moonball thrower like Jalen Hurts to A.J. Brown. If the Chiefs limit explosive plays, they are putting themselves in an advantageous spot. Like that is their path to success. If the Eagles score, fine, it's going to happen, and they might still have 2 plays of 50-plus yards. But the idea is that it's not happening so frequently where you're playing from behind because the Chiefs can then exert their will offensively.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's specifically they want to limit the explosives in the passing game. I think that's what they don't want to be. I think they want to make it where Hurts has some confusing looks and he takes some shots into a tighter window and it turns into an interception. Like I said earlier, they can't really control the Barkley explosive runs. You can't construct the defense that is there to say we're stopping explosive run plays. You could put a shell for pass plays and put that safety there, but the defense doesn't necessarily say, well, this is designed for the run. But you're exactly right. They don't want the explosive pass plays. They want the backbreakers from A.J. Brown.
One final point with the Eagles offense, or I guess question to you. I have my niche bet things that I like to do, and we'll get to the prop section towards the end of the show. But when we're looking at what happened 2 years ago, and it feels like more or less saying the same thing. I mean, that it didn't really occur. Right? The Chiefs couldn't stop the Eagles all game, and Eagles couldn't stop the Chiefs. I think there's going to be more defense involved in part 2 here, but Jalen Hurts had 15 carries. Jalen Hurts is averaging around 8 to 10 carries per game. And you think about that Commanders game 2 weeks ago, it was a sequence of 6 tush pushes. Of course, 3 or 4 got called off sides, but that counts as a carry, right? So is that one of the easier assumptions is to say, well, I'll take the over on Jalen Hurts' carries because A, the tush push is going to give me at least 2 or 3, no matter the scenario, what scoring option. But also, Spagnuolo is going to give some exotic blitzes. And even if Jalen Hurts doesn't hit his rushing total, he will likely get at least 2 or 3 yards. It's going to be hard to pin him in and also create the pressure that you're explaining or expecting the Chiefs to do.
Right. Any third or one, even second and one, they might go right to the tush push there as well. So you're totally right. Betting the over on Jalen Hurts rushing attempts is going to be a nice bet to make. Now, Joe, you remind me of one last thing I wanted before we bounce out. I wanted to say this during the show today. I think this is the game where last year's retirement of Jason Kelce may be a big deal. Kelce was a legend at calling protections.
Mm-hmm.
And they're up against Spagnuolo. And Spagnuolo does not give you easy looks. Tom Brady's talked about this. Brady said that he was able to have some success at times against Spagnuolo because he played forever. He saw everything. He played against Spags a million times and all the film. And he was able, with his veteran ability, to be able to figure some things out. With the protections now, Cam Jurgens, we assume he's playing with the back injury.
Right.
This is his first year playing center. He doesn't have anywhere in the stratosphere of Jason Kelce's experience. Jalen Hurts, I know, has tried to call some protections, but he's still a younger emerging quarterback. Mm-hmm. Certainly not one that has that level of experience. So that could be and we won't be able to quantify this when we're watching the game, but there could be looks that come that they don't have any idea are coming because they have nobody. The center of the quarterback will not be able to know, oh, they're bringing that backside blitz. Oh, they're sending their best cover corner in on a corner blitz. They may not pick that up.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And it happened against Josh Allen, right? In the very last possession for the Bills and Chiefs, that it was the corner blitz. Allen is one of the best gifted athletes in the NFL. That he was even able to make a throw like that and put in a position for Dalton Kincaid to drop it. That's a tough play. Like NFL players could make that. I'm not necessarily Kincaid drops, but that's a really difficult thing that Josh Allen was able to do. And they saved that blitz for when it mattered most. There was not any other point where they gave that tell away, used it when it mattered most. And I guarantee you Spagnuolo is going to have one of those, much like the cornhole play that Andy Reid busts out in the Super Bowl. You can do a defensive equivalent of that. It's not nearly as effective often, those trick plays, but there's an equivalent of that defensively. And we know Spagnuolo is going to be able to provide that against this Eagles offense. All right. We'll go ahead.
Joe, real quick, on that play with that blitz against the Bills, the beauty of it was how it was set up. They put Chris Jones on the opposite side, knowing they would slide extra protection his way. And by getting the extra protection slid there, that allowed Spags to move the chess piece. It's like total chess, dude. It's like 3D chess against checkers. I had to add that in because that was the layer. Because you think, oh, Chris Jones is going to make the play here. No, Chris Jones set up the play so that the corner could make the big play.
I might get annoyed that we get the Chiefs refs and the Eagles in a rematch from 2 years ago and yada, yada. These are two of the best teams in the NFL, coaching wise, player wise, personnel wise. And we should get good football come Sunday. It shouldn't be referee oriented, at least hopefully. We'll have to see with that. So the Chiefs offense, again, from a repeat from 2 years ago, Mahomes didn't even throw for 200 yards. He did have 3 touchdowns, but it was Travis Kelce show, over 60 yards receiving. And then Juju Smith-Schuster, of all people, was the second leading receiver for that Chiefs offense. Pacheco ended up being really good from a rushing perspective. But there's a dramatic difference between the Chiefs 2 years ago and right now. You could argue, I think it's a foolish argument, but you could argue that Mahomes isn't necessarily the weak link, but he is not the difference maker, the decider kind of quarterback that he was early on in his career. And now you have DeAndre Hopkins, you have Marquise Brown, you have Xavier Worthy, who's been coming on, is also one of the hotter bets out there right now. Travis Kelce is still around. And the other difference is the rushing attack is completely absent. Isaiah Pacheco still does not seem like he's back from the broken leg he suffered at the beginning of the season. They might have rushed him back too early, but who cares now? They're at the Super Bowl. You'd have him out here anyway if he was available to go at this point. And then there's Kareem Hunt, who's doing his best, but there's severe limitations with him, both as a receiver and I think also breaking gaps running too. So you would want to be like, well, the Chiefs are going to win the ball passing with Mahomes and Travis Kelce like they've done so often. But that sort of leads into the strength of the Eagles defense. The secondary with both Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean has gotten plenty of attention. But the dimension of Oren Burks right now, adding a blitz package and also allowing either of the linebackers to attack blitzing wise, makes the Eagles defense really potent against the pass.
So Vic Fangio is one of the best defensive coordinators of our time, and he has slowed down Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is 8-0 against him, but he slowed him down a little bit. But what I'll tell you is this: Vic Fangio has one thing he preaches to his defenses, that we do not give up explosive plays. They play the shell over the top. They want you to take the underneath stuff, and they'll rally and tackle. They'll get people downhill to tackle, and that's their whole point. It's like they're bend and don't break, I guess we'll say. Sure. They are happy living in that world. And we saw Tyler Higbee had a massive game against them, and that blew me away. Tyler Higbee, seriously. And then we saw the shell of Zach Ertz go 11 for $104. Yes, and true. I know a lot of that the game is over, but this defense will give you the underneath stuff. They will give it to you all day long. And here's the problem that we have. Some people say, well, Fangio knows this. It's a Super Bowl. He's going to, try to stop that against the Chiefs. Well, that's not in his DNA, but let's pretend it is. Now you got the problem, Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy on the field. As soon as they start moving people in, don't you think Andy Reid's going to say, oh, they're going to play a one high look? Well, we're going to send Marquise Brown, Hollywood, right through the second and third level, and we are going to take the top off. And Mahomes is going to buy time, and he is going to rip them through the air. So with Brown, that changes the entire calculus. So Fangio is going to play his style here. He is going to hope that a holding call.
Yes. Or sack, right? A surprise sack, something like that. Yep.
Yes. And so that is going to be very, very interesting to see, how that shakes out. But I really think this plays into the Chiefs. Since the Chiefs got rid of Tyreek Hill a couple of years ago, that offense has changed. They're happy taking a 14-play drive because that's what Fangio needs you to do. But most teams can't make a 14-play drive. It's like you said, a sack, a holding call, an offsides, those set you back and you end up punting. The Chiefs can live in that world. If you're going to give them that, we saw Tom Brady end of his career do that. All right, I'll take the 5 yards, take the 6 yards, just down the field. And I just don't know what they can do. Now, here's the one thing I'm interested in, Joe. So Joe Tooney's moved to left tackle, and he's done a very nice job for them. Man, if you're playing the Eagles here, And they've got that interior, and we know, man, Jalen Carter's a game wrecker. And he's got Milton Williams with him and Jordan Davis. That's a front three, the 3-4 defense. And I'm thinking to myself, you got Mike Caliendo at guard. Now we know, you got Creed Humphrey at center, Trey Smith at right guard. They're very good. But man, they can move people around. And Caliendo can get like whipped. And I wonder if Andy Reid, even if he doesn't start in there, if it's a problem at the beginning, moves Tooney back to guard and make it a stalemate there. Because Nolan Smith's had a nice postseason, postseason. And Josh Sweat's good. Neither of those guys are game wreckers on the outside. You could get by with normal tackle play and a chip help. You could get by with that against them because those two guys are not these monster pass rushers. So that's going to be interesting to see if Jalen Carter is causing problems early, that if they're going to let Tooney neutralize that. That's going to be interesting.
Well, and he did against the Commanders. That was one of the big things, especially on pivotal downs. And he has really throughout this entire postseason. It's interesting. I liked what you said about the Vic Fangio thing. The smart NFL fans like, well, if this coach is known for doing this, then when it comes to the biggest game, they've had 2 weeks of preparation. Why can't he do X, right? Like if he does Z, why can't he do X? But it literally, and people use this as a moniker, and it's fine. It goes against the DNA of the coach, but also the team and personnel that's created, right? Fangio was effectively one of their big free agent signings, getting him as a coach this year, and the personnel was built around that. Everything the Eagles have done and all the confidence they've been built up over this entire season has been predicated on doing what Fangio wants to do defensively. You're supposed to then change it up over 2 weeks. Well, coach, this has been working for us. Why would we change? You're almost like walking in admitting defeat. Not that you're trying to lose, but like you're admitting defeat by having it. So it's a mental game on top of the chess part of things too, because the Chiefs will happily walk down the field. And you as Vic Fangio, the defense, are saying more so, Jawan Taylor is going to get at least one false start. So the down will be 1st and 15, and then we'll be able to win. Or Cooper DeJean's going to break up a bubble pass. That was more of like a, let's get to 2nd and 6 sort of play call. And now it's 2nd and 10. And when you're trying to play that game, when you're trying to play that level of defense where you're just stealing a possession, like one down, you're stealing it down, it doesn't work that way. Not with the biggest stakes on the line, and not for a team that has so much experience and knows what this feels like. Not that the Eagles don't. The Eagles have been here just 2 years ago, but even a guy like Jalen Carter, for example, this will be his first Super Bowl. Nolan Smith, same thing. There's a lot of pressure on the Chiefs to three-peat. All of America wants to see them fail. All of them wants to see the referees lose. I mean, the Chiefs lose. But you have to have these younger players perform to that level, and expecting them to effectively be perfect and take advantage of the few mistakes the Chiefs gives, that makes me really, really nervous. And oh, by the way, if they do change the defense, then you're setting it up for the worst case scenario. The worst case is what you said. Xavier Worthy, Marquise Brown, over the top, 70-yard touchdown. And then the Eagles, who have been ahead, playing from ahead the entire game, have to then hope Saquon Barkley rips off a long one, or Spags leaves single coverage on AJ Brown for some reason. You can't go tick for tack with that. Like it just doesn't work that way. And then you have to try not to be pressured to go ahead and match a big play. If you're getting what I'm saying, Jim, I certainly feel like the Eagles are overmatched, not even from a personnel perspective, but literally from the coaching, from what the Chiefs can do and the many angles they can beat you. I'm nervous for the Eagles side this Sunday.
Joe, as you say that, this is another important point I want to bring up. The Chiefs are not playing the same football the rest of the league's playing. They are in the lab for 4 months. They want to win football games. They know they're getting to the AFC Championship game. They know there's a chance they get to the Super Bowl. They toy with things throughout the season. They integrate players in. When a certain look is good, they might not expand on it until they really, really need it. And now I'm going to forget Nate Taylor. He's the beat writer for The Athletic, who has covered the Chiefs for a long time. And he said what I knew in my own heart. Nate Taylor said, they will never tell you they're not, game planning full out in the regular season. But he goes, I know they are. They are setting it for February. And so that's the difference with the coaching staff. Every other team has their best stuff on film. The best thing the Eagles have, that's all on film. You will have time to study it. You'll have time to plan against it. Andy Reid, Spagnuolo, they've got things sitting in the hopper that the Eagles have not game planned for because they don't even know it exists. That is a level that we can't even quantify because no team has been arrogant enough to be
Right.
able to do that.
That's right. That's
Even
exactly way to put it. Mhm.
right? Even the Belichick Patriots, they went out every single week and specifically game planned for minor opponents to take away. They did playoff game planning for 17 weeks plus the playoffs. This is one of the only times you will ever in your life see a coaching staff that isn't like showing you their stuff.
Arrogance is a perfect way to put it. And I don't think football fans, especially more casual ones, can understand how that's possible. Like if you played high school sports, whatever. And I'm from like a D4, D5 school. I've played, but I was like a bench warmer. Like I was not very good. Like I played sports technically. The idea of being able to hold back punches is a foreign concept. Like no one would actually believe that's possible to do it, especially at the professional level, if you played any sports at all. But the Chiefs have done it not once, not twice, but 3 times in the past 2 years. We have literal quantifiable examples. The first one was Rasheed Rice. Think about what happened week 12 onwards last year as a rookie, where it was very clear they're working more into the offense. And come playoff time, he was easily the most potent receiver on the team. The same goes for Travis Kelce last year. Week 5 or week 6, people were like, man, this is the worst pick I ever made of all time. Of course, the year I take him in the first round is when he stinks. And yeah, he didn't quite live up to that what you're expecting him to. But Travis Kelce by the end of the year was Travis Kelce. And they did it again with Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce this year, despite Marquise Brown being injured, despite working DeAndre Hopkins into the offense, theoretically being lesser than they ever have before, they still were able to do it. Part of that's because the division sucks, right? You know you're going to at least get a playoff spot because the Broncos or Raiders or Chargers aren't going to be able to compete for it. And part of it's the horseshoe up their butt the entire year, the double doinks, the Aiden O'Connell snaps into the face, all the different wins they got when they shouldn't have. It allowed them to not have to be aggressive, to not show that stuff. So arrogance is the right call, Jim.
Yeah.
And it's not even like it's an insult to other teams.
No,
it's just that they can do it. They have the coaching staff and players to do it. And now expose it again. Here come the Super Bowl, the most important game of the season.
Yeah, it's crazy that we're saying this. And the arrogance is also confidence. The confidence to know we don't have to work on this play in a game, because we know we can execute. And of course they do practice, some things that they're going to try. They'll just roll it out and say, oh, we're going to try something. They practice it, but to not doing it as a live opponent. But it's confidence too, knowing Mahomes will execute it, knowing you built up players to teach them how to do certain things. One final thing I didn't think of earlier. I don't know how much the Chiefs want to run the ball here. I don't know if they're going to bang their head against the wall. You're going to run some. You have to run. But maybe the run is a screen pass, not the running backs necessarily. Maybe it's Xavier Worthy slants. Maybe it's, a quick get Noah Gray involved. And because Oren Burks is a liability in coverage. Nakobe Dean got hurt in a wild card game. They've been without him. And Oren Burks has not been tested in the playoffs. He's not a good cover guy. But Andy Reid can set up a play to isolate a player on a specific linebacker. But there are a lot of ways that they can create a running game without handing the ball off to the running backs. I can see very diminished rush attempts because why run against that defense?
Especially if you're comfortable saying I can go on a 14-play drive where I mix in by default to keep teams honest some runs. But the reality is I can do a 14-play drive where I'm just paper cutting my team down the field, right? It's Travis Kelce. It's DeAndre Hopkins got an out route for 4 yards. Now it's 2nd and 6. Therefore, the Eagles can't do X, Y, and Z thing. Andy Reid knows that. Situational football, ironically, was not his strong suit with the Eagles, but I feel like that's one of his biggest jumps in coaching. Ability is the wrong word, but he's just way better at it. I don't know if it's Mahomes necessarily for the Chiefs, but the situational awareness, what happens down to down, I think the Chiefs command that and exert the presence and pressure on the team. So I think it's very clear, Jim, at least in my mind, that I believe the Chiefs are the favorite. I think they're going to win. I kind of am a little bit worried that this could be like a 10-point victory for the Chiefs, where maybe the outcome is in question in the fourth quarter at some point, but either a turnover will happen or a 4th down stop by the Chiefs defense on a tush push, something like that is all it's going to take. And I think the Chiefs are going to win by 10. So I'm going to go 28. I'm going to go 30-20. Chiefs win 30-20 and complete the three-peat. Taylor Swift gets her ring. I'm kidding. That won't happen. But the three-peat will occur. Chiefs win against the Eagles.
Oh, she'll get a ring, all right on this finger. And that's my second finger,
I
everybody.
was like, wait, what are we showing here, Jim?
No, that's my second. I have my ring on it, so that's the right finger. That's the fingers after the game. She might get proposed to, right? We can see that. They thought last year that would happen.
To be fair to all the Swifties who I know are eagerly flocking in and watching, we have lots of Swiftie fans, especially our producers in the SiriusXM show, who chided me yesterday when I was bringing that up, that there's no way Taylor Swift, she's far too private. That wouldn't happen. So the only thing that would occur, Jim, is if Travis Kelce at the end of the game thanks his fiance Taylor for all the help. There would be no such bending of the ring that they'll have already done it at some point. So I want to at least all the Swifties, I want to angry guys out there who are watching. I do not think
about Shan Blunt over here. Yep, Shan knows her stuff. Not gonna ever discount what Shan says. So no, again, engagement won't happen. If Shan says it, it's the way it'll be. So your prediction slightly hits the over, Joe. It started at 49.5, or I think it was 48.5, went to 49.5, back to 48.5 now. And so you have a slight over lean on that one. You do have them winning by 10. And I totally see it. Andy Reid has that history of not winning by big digits, whether it's a backdoor cover. They don't play well with a big lead. They'll play soft late in the game when they shouldn't. So they certainly could win by 10. I've got it by 6, 30-24. So we're in the same boat. Right, we're right at the 30 mark, and we're within a couple points. We're right there in the same thing. I do have the Chiefs winning. I know people hate the Chiefs because they're winning. This is history if they win. It's a great thing. I get it. When Michael Jordan won the 6, I'm sure the rest of the league hated him because their team wasn't winning. And I get how all that works. And I get fatigue of the Chiefs. I get all that. And the thing with the flags, Joe, maybe it's a thing. But when you're on national TV every week and all your games are high profile, are you really watching the other 15 games every week to see when the flags are being thrown and when they're not? And I think that's part of the disconnect. It's like, oh, man, there's Mahomes. Well, in 7 other games that same Sunday, there may have been similar flags, but nobody saw those games or nobody cared because it was, the 2-7, this team against the 4-5, that
You can say Jaguars and Titans. It's fine, Jim. It's fine.
I've thought about Jaguars, thought about saying that. Definitely, but I think 2 wins was too many at that time. It may have been. So, yeah, so for the prediction, I'm with you on that. Now, on the Super Bowl marathon we did on RotoWire YouTube. Again, that's on the main RotoWire YouTube channel. You can't find the channel you're watching on, but if you want to watch it, we had 50 analysts Monday and Tuesday. You could definitely check that out. We're going to do props in a minute, but that said, we had a lot of Eagles love. The majority went with the Eagles, probably about 6, but it was all said and done, it was probably about 60% Eagles, 40% Chiefs. So Joe and I are a little bit in the minority. But again, it depends how you get there, and then we're kind of pretty firm in how we
be rooting with their heart too, right? I mean, that's part of
it.
If
I think so.
You or I in the industry, whoever are watching this game, you are therefore obligated or feel like you have to watch it. At least I do. I don't know if I would if I was not in the sports industry to the level I am. You have to then find a way to be excited for what you're watching. And you know me, I'm the ever pessimist that I am. As somebody that does not want to see the Chiefs win at all, I know for a fact they will, because that's just been the season that we've been getting, is that every single way they could possibly win, they seem to do so. And I do think they'll complete that three-peat. So you obviously had, what was it, over 80 guests, 60 guests, something like that over the course of the past
50.
2 days, over 50 guests over the past 2 days, basically all giving you at least some sort of prop bets. I already talked about Dallas Goedert being one of the more listed ones. I know yesterday on the SiriusXM show with Jeff Erickson, they had mentioned Dallas Goedert's 47.5 over receiving yards with Pat Mayo has now climbed to 52.5. I've seen the same sort of rise in Xavier Worthy's receiving yards and receptions, but I'll give it to you, Jim. Is there any props that you have? I have like 3 that I like, but any props that you like or heard during the 2-day marathon that occurred Monday and Tuesday?
Yeah, a lot of them agreed with what I was going with. And if you want to see my props, you can go to my X at Jim Coventry NFL. I have 13 pages of notes on this game. A lot of stuff I talked about here, obviously, but it's a narrative form. I break down position by position and props at the end, so you can check that out. But yes, so the main ones, we talk about Dallas Goedert, and you mentioned the yardage. I'm more comfortable with the receptions. Now, it's gotten juiced a little bit. Over 4.5 receptions. It was minus 120 when I bet it last Thursday. Right now, it's minus 134. So it's getting juiced up. Now, in the last 4 games, Goddard's caught exactly 4 passes, which has gone under. He had a 7 there. But like I said earlier, Kansas City against the tight end, they give you those passes. They're free. And I think that's going to be an easy outlet for Hurts. And so I do think that Dallas Goedert over, I like that better than the yardage. The yardage is sometimes tougher to control, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with you. I mentioned Jalen Hurts is over in his rushing attempts on FanDuel. You can find it for 8.5 minus 138. I would have to shop around a little bit, but I think Jalen Hurts is over in the rush attempts. I like a lot. And I often think about parlay fillers. That's what everyone's going to be doing. Even if you're a casual sports fan, if you're in about 30 different states right now, you could put together different parlay options out there. And there's a number of different I would call them parlay builders in my article. Here's a minus 200 piece. And then you could pick other 2 or 3 options to get you in the plus 300 range. We all want to make the big bucks. That's going to be one of the things you can watch on Sunday with all your friends and family, whatever else. So one of my parlay pieces, I would say, is the Saquon Barkley over on his the longest run at, like, I think it was at, there, not the 25.5. There's a different Saquon Barkley rushing total number that I liked a lot. I'll have to go back and look at my notes real quick, but it was a minus 196 sort of thing, and I think would be a perfect fit on parlays and FanDuel. Is there any of those types of bets that you know of, Jim, that you're looking at for this Sunday?
I'm a pretty meat and potatoes guy here. I'll give you the rest of my props. I'll probably about 6 of them. I'll give you the rest of these here. And then whenever, when I'm done, you want to chime in, whatnot. I like 3 Travis Kelce props. And I would put them all in the same game parlay. You get paid pretty well for it. The anytime touchdown. It was plus 130. It's up to plus 140 today on DraftKings.
Interesting.
Look, it could be his last game. I don't see a world where they get in the red zone and Mahomes isn't looking for him. And it's not like he has to force him the ball. They probably got a dozen different plays and variations of those plays where they can get him the ball, and they won't be like changing the offense to do that. They're in a mind meld. You know what I mean? So that's comfort. When you're in the red zone and things get tight in a Super Bowl, man, knowing you may just look at Kelce and you may just look at him, and there literally might be something in that look saying, yep, see this, do that. I mean, that him scoring a touchdown at plus 140. I love that. If you get really, really nutty, plus scoring 2 touchdowns, I don't like that bet, but that's one you could consider. And then Kelce's over 6.5 receptions. That's gone up from plus 112 to plus 123. Again, Philly will give you the underneath stuff. Zach Ertz had 11 catches. Tyler Higbee, I don't remember what his number was, but I think he may have had 7 catches in that game. But the tight ends are just piling up numbers on them. And then the yardage, it's gone down for Kelce. It went down from like 63 to 61.5. And if they're going to give him all this underneath stuff, I know he's not playing great, but he's had a number of games where he sailed over that number. So I'll just stop for a minute. I got a couple more, but that's what I got at Kelce. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I like all the Kelce ones. I think the anytime touchdown is really interesting, and that's always a popular part for the parlays. For what it's worth, Saquon Barkley is in the minus 200 range or minus 150 range for a touchdown, and that's fine. I think if you believe the Eagles are to win, betting a lot of those Saquon Barkley numbers is the right call, because I think he'll be the difference maker to that end. Neither Jim nor I do. That's why we're going more of the Chiefs lines with Kelce and everything else. I did see it was Saquon Barkley over the first running back to get the first player to get 40 yards rushing, first player. So that could mean Jalen Hurts. That means Mahomes. That was minus 280s. That's what I was thinking of on FanDuel. I do think that occurs over Kareem Hunt or Isaiah Pacheco, and Mahomes is certainly capable of getting his over on his rushing. We mentioned the over on the rushing attempts for Jalen Hurts. I think Barkley's probably getting the first crack to get over 40 yards rushing. The other, and this is not one that you can do in parlays, but I feel very comfortable saying minus 235 right now in FanDuel, the opening kickoff to either be a touchback or fair catch. That's happened each of the past 3 years. During the Chiefs Super Bowl reign, Butker has had that happen in 3 of the 4 Super Bowls. So I'm sorry, 2 of the 3. This would be the 4th one. The Eagles and Chiefs are about middle of the pack in terms of return attempts and return yards, which is about 30-ish. That's a little bit less than 2 per game, given how many they play this year. It's not a fun bet necessarily, but I think the Eagles and Chiefs understand that let's just play this smart. It doesn't really matter if we yield an extra 10 yards or whatever. Kneel down, get the jitters out of the way. I think the touchback is definitely going to occur.
I love that bet. That makes a lot of sense for sure. Last 2 props. I'll give you 2 more. Let's give you another Eagles one. Jalen Hurts in anytime touchdown is only minus 110. It hasn't moved. Minus 110 is really, really good odds. I mean, clearly he scored over a dozen touchdowns, I think it was this year, plus playoff touchdowns. And anytime they're near the goal line, they're pushing him in. So, and he can get a long run too. It's not just like the short run. He ran the 40-yard or 44-yard one, I believe, against the Rams in that first game. So yeah, Hurts running in for a touchdown. That's very good odds. I like that. And then one more, Xavier Worthy. over 5.5 receptions. And oh man, I had the numbers that I'll try to remember off the top of my head. 4 of the last 5 games, he's had at least 6 receptions. The game he missed, he had 5, so he just missed the over on him. But he's averaging 9 targets over his last 5 games. His usage in the offense has skyrocketed, and there's no reason to see that going away right now. And so over 5.5 receptions, it started out at plus 112. It's almost the same as plus 107. You're getting plus odds on Worthy catching 6 passes. Now, the one worry is that they use him on more runs in this game, but they've been running him a couple times a game anyway. So I don't know if this is so different. And I really do think, like we said earlier, I don't know how much they want to run the ball. So using the screen in this quick hitch game, that's going to be, I think, an important element. So I do think Worthy can get over this one.
Even dating back to week 13, if you take out the one game in which he left early against the Broncos, week 18, where they didn't really play at all, he is averaging 6 receptions since week 13. So I like that call a lot. The targets, the volume matters. It's the same playbook as Rashee Rice last year, who was integrated right around week 12, week 13, and became a crucial part of that offense. I think Marquise Brown's an interesting one, too. A lot of people are betting Xavier Worthy's rushing total for both those guys. Just something to keep in mind. Though I'm going to ask you this, because I think it's interesting. And when I'm watching the Super Bowl, we're all looking for the crazy play to occur. This unprecedented thing, right? With Nick Foles and the touchdown with the Eagles a couple of years ago, right? Some sort of trick play. Right now in FanDuel, a non-quarterback to throw a passing touchdown is plus 2,000. The Eagles don't do it all that often. They already have a cheat code offensively in the tush push. They don't really need to do that. The Chiefs almost never do. In fact, in any of the Super Bowls they played, there hasn't been a single player that's attempted a pass that's not Patrick Mahomes during the stretch. You had Juwan Jennings do it last year. You had Cooper Kupp in the Rams, and you had Joe Mixon for the Bengals the past couple of years, all attempt passes. Is this the year? It's the one time the Chiefs would do something different, right? That maybe they would do something different from a passing touchdown perspective. Do you think that's a wise bet or just a foolish one at plus 2,000?
The light bulb just went on. If Andy Reid thinks in some way this is Kelsey's last game, could you see Kelsey throwing a touchdown pass to Mahomes?
I could see a lot of different Kelsey things, and that's where I was going with that too. And it doesn't have. It is literally as simple as Kelsey takes the snap and does a shovel pass to Xavier Worthy coming across left to right. We have seen Kelsey line up as quarterback a fair amount over the stretch. Just a shovel pass, like what Mahomes would do for Kelsey, has happened plenty of times over the career. If Kelsey does a shovel pass to Xavier Worthy, that not only would probably be a touchdown, because that's a pretty difficult thing to kind of game plan for, but also cements him as the Super Bowl MVP. And I'm sure Mahomes would be happy to give up one of them during this 3-year stretch. That means that Kelsey can end on the highest of high notes, which he has said he doesn't want to. For the record, Kelsey said he wants to play next year. That came out during the pressers last 2 days. I would like a lot of things, Travis Kelce. It might be more of your time. We'll have to see, though.
You know, again, whatever Kelsey said, he said. But maybe he doesn't want to be a distraction. If the team knows, it may just be very simply, I am not making this about me. We are setting up for the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. We've been here.
Great point.
So I'm look, I'm not in the house. I'm not in his brain. I don't know anything. But it certainly could be, of course you deny it, because the last thing you want is this whole thing to be the whole game talk about Kelsey's retirement. That's possible. A couple quick things. You mentioned Marquise Brown. Over 3.5 receptions, it's minus 127. I have confidence ratings on my props. There's a lower one, but I do like that one. I like over at 3.5 receptions, definitely like that, but it's a lower confidence one. So I have that there. That's why I didn't bring it up earlier. Jamie asked a little bit earlier that Pacheco hasn't scored a touchdown since week 1. Are you betting the under on 0.5 TD? If you get any kind of reasonable odds on that, absolutely. They're not going to use him at the goal line. He's not in the goal line back. Kareem Hunt is. Thoughts on that, Joe?
I would be taking there's ones I like more, because Pacheco's explosive enough, if he's healthy, to rip off a 20-yard run. And we talk about the passing opportunities as well, too. It would make me a little bit nervous that if the Chiefs are to score as much as we think, again, we both had 30 points for the Chiefs, they're in the red zone enough where that could just happen by default, even if I think Kareem Hunt is utilized as the goal line back. So I would say the under. Would I bet the under, though? I don't know. That would be part of a parlay, but it would not be the only parlay. It's not the parlay builder piece. I'd say it that way.
Yeah. Scott's asking us about, is this a fade Kelsey in DFS? So, well, the whole point of DFS is many are going to have Kelsey. Many see that this is a defense that has gotten shredded by tight ends. Like I said, Higbee got him. Ertz got him for 11 for 100 yards. So you fade him at your own risk. That's the beauty of DFS. The beauty of DFS is if he is 80% rostered and you're on the 20% and Kelsey, let's say he dings an ankle early in the game. Let's say something like that happens, or, then all of a sudden you're ahead of 80% of the field. So in DFS, the contrarian play always makes sense because do you want to end up tied with 10,000 people?
Right.
So
thoughts on that, fifth highest priced DFS player on the DraftKings at 9,000. AJ Brown 9,600. Mahomes and Jalen Hurts right around 10 grand, and then Saquon Barkley, of course, your highest at 12,000. I would assume most people will fade Saquon Barkley, like that anyone playing DFS is going to just deliberately choose to fade Saquon Barkley, and that's probably the right call. So in that regard, you would have to then go a fade further and fade Travis Kelce, who I think is probably one I'd like more than AJ Brown, for example, at a bit more expensive price. I don't know if I'm fading Travis Kelce in DFS, but also I'm not very successful at DFS. So Scott, you might have a better answer than I would when it comes to that.
Yeah, it would only be for the contrarian angle because we have talked about it. We think this sets up perfectly for Kelsey on a lot of different platforms. So there's just something to think about that too. And then let's take one more quick one from Scott, and then we'll get out of here. There's always one receiver that steps up that nobody saw coming into Super Bowl. Well, we know it's not the Eagles because they don't use anybody besides their top guys. So, Joe, who on the Chiefs is there anybody in the Chiefs?
So I'm looking at the DFS part of it. Actually, Hollywood Brown's 5,400. So like you think about, oh, okay, that's there, and Xavier Worthy is already 8,000.
Yep.
The one difference. Well, I'm going to give you two actually. So we had Smith Schuster have a couple plays against the Bills. I don't want to go that direction, but if you were to say Noah Gray gets 3 or 4 catches, what if Travis Kelce were to get injured? I don't want that to occur. I don't think that'll occur. But if you're game planning for Kelce to be a big factor, could Noah Gray 1-for-1 step in? Maybe not to that level, but I think Noah Gray actually could be a really interesting piece. And we know he's already targeted at a certain amount. He's at 2,800 on DFS. The other one, and again, this is more of a DFS angle, is DeAndre Hopkins at 4,400.
Yes,
that's the like 10th or 11th highest priced player on a DFS slate. And Hopkins has the opportunity, just with the amount of times I think the Chiefs look in the red zone, to dictate and control the outcome of a game, make a player to a first down reception, or more importantly, a touchdown. And Hopkins can do that. You think about the corners, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean are really good. They're also about 4 inches smaller than DeAndre Hopkins. And that's one of his best skill set is boxing a player out, especially a rookie in this kind of big game. So Hopkins would probably be my answer, even though he's not like a unheralded receiver by any means.
Yeah, and you're right. It's contrarian because Hopkins doesn't play a lot of snaps these days. He's really had him limited. But in this specific game, it may be some easy one-on-one matchups they may determine during their game planning. Well, this is something that we can use. So you're looking for that. But I like your Marquise Brown call because he has not had a big game. He's had a couple games of 40-ish yards when he first came back, like week 16 and 17. But this could be the game. Andy Reid may have something very big planned because there's not a lot on tape on Hollywood Brown, and that speed is real. And he's been practicing since week 14, 15. Yep. So he's been practicing for quite a while. So that would be a great one. And the Noah Gray one I like too, because like I said earlier, if they decide to isolate somebody on Oren Burks, that may be the easiest one to isolate because the defense certainly isn't looking for him, and they may be able to clear people out, get Zach Bond moving one way, and then just move Gray out a few times on Burks, and that could be real beneficial.
Yeah, I love somebody in the chat. I'm trying to find it right now. Jamie mentions that if this is Kelsey's last game, he'll need 2 touchdowns to tie Jerry Rice's all-time postseason record. Talk about hubris. Talk about confidence. Talk about arrogance. If the Chiefs are like, yeah, we know this is Kelsey's last game, we're going to make sure that he scores 2 to at least tie, or 3, possibly to put him over the edge. And that would be wild if that were to occur. I see to score 2 touchdowns right now, Travis Kelce only plus 900. I think I need a bit better odds to bet anybody to score 2 touchdowns other than maybe Jalen Hurts or Saquon Barkley, but that would be kind of crazy. So
put $1 on it.
There you go. Yeah, for Jamie, if nothing else, we could all celebrate Jamie this time next year if that one ends up hitting. So that does it for us on this edition and final edition of the year of the Wednesday Weekly Rankings with Jim. Obviously, we're gonna have tons of NFL content during the off season. We have a lot of really cool things planned. We already have Nick Whalen on site in New Orleans, along with DJ and Alan, doing a lot of different content there. You can check it out on our main RotoWire page on Nick Whalen's social media. I think it's Nick and W WHA1EN. So Nick Whalen on Twitter. But lots more football. And in fact, Jim and I are going to be doing our draft. There is a draft already happening. I don't want to spoil any more because it's not ours to spoil, but a draft will be happening Friday that multiple of the RotoWire contingency will be a part of. We'll be happy to give you the results of that on our social media platforms out there. But for everyone who's been a part of this, the nearly 500 listeners or watchers right now, thank you. It's been a great NFL season, minus the Chiefs doing things are great. And I am more than excited to do this again with you again next time, or this time next year, Jim. So thank you. And thank you for putting together the marathon as well, too, which has been one of our big things throughout the entire NFL seasons, too.